And I was always scared of the Muppets anyway. Like, I love the Muppets, but pigs in space used to freak me out. Like, why are they pigs? Hi, I'm Gareth Edwards, and these are my film firsts with BAFTA. Okay, this is tricky. I remember queuing to see in the cinema Flash Gordon. I don't remember seeing it, but I remember the queue, because I think Jaws 2 was on at the same time, and I was asking my dad what Jaws was. But I definitely remember being in the cinema during Indiana Jones, because I was very annoying, and I ran up and down the aisle because I got so excited. I was one of those really annoying kids that should have got kicked out. And I remember the first film I ever saw without parental supervision was BMX Bandits, and also Footloose. So you can see how old I must be, you can figure it out exactly. The first film I saw at a young age that I should not have seen was American Werewolf in London. I saw it when I was 6 years old. My dad actually made me watch it. I didn't sleep in my own bed again for another 3 years. It traumatized me, and it explains a lot about why I'm not okay as an adult. The bit that haunted me, I mean, there's so many things about that movie that's just amazing. It's a masterpiece. But as a kid, I loved the Muppets. So that scene where the Muppets on TV and then all the Nazis as pigs that come in and shoot the whole family up, it was a lot of imagery that I just couldn't process as a 6-year-old. And like, why is this happening? And I was always scared of the Muppets anyway. Like, I love the Muppets, but pigs in space used to freak me out. Like, why are they pigs? So then to see pigs come in dressed as Nazis and kill everyone, it kind of totally fulfilled my suspicions, which is you should never trust a pig. They're gonna get you in the end. There are so many favorite characters from films and TV shows. From a TV show, I would have to go with Rod Serling, I guess. The way he would appear in the middle of some really messed up situation and just be smoking and just talking really casually. He's the coolest guy in the world, I think.
What you're about to watch in this room is a strange mortal combat between a man and himself.
There was lots of TV shows. The one I got really obsessed with, proper, was the Twilight Zone. Ended up watching one episode by sheer fluke on a holiday with Mum and Dad. We pulled into a motel in the middle of Arizona, and they had one of those old TVs that you have to click to the next channel. And it was the perfect conditions. The Twilight Zone started, and I'd never seen one. And I didn't see the end. I fell asleep. And so on the car journey the next day, my dad told me the twist ending, and I was like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And so then I just started recording them, and there's over 150 odd episodes, and I had all of them on tape when I was about 16, and I watched them to death. And it's probably my biggest inspiration for storytelling is Rod Serling. My favorite episode, I've got a lot of favorite episodes, but the one that actually inspired this movie is an episode called The Lonely, about a guy who is marooned on an asteroid, and as company, or they give him a gift, a box, and he opens it up, and inside, just to stop him being so lonely, it's a female android. And initially he's like, get away from me, you're like a lie, and then he starts to fall in love, and then they come and get him and say, you gotta leave, but you can't take the android with you. And so he's really torn, and I love that kind of dilemma. The first film or TV show I saw that made me think I want to make films, well, weirdly, obviously there's the obvious contenders like Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark in terms of wanting to be, Luke Skywalker, but I actually would probably blame on ITV on a Saturday, in between sports programs, they would randomly show the making of Indiana Jones or the making of Star Wars, and it was how Industrial Light and Magic did the effects or something, and it was completely random. And if you suddenly saw it happening, you'd grab a Betamax tape, put it in, and try and record it. And it was those sort of documentaries that made me realize this was a thing called filmmaking, and you storyboard it and all this sort of stuff. And I would watch that stuff to death, and it felt like, something you could never really get to do in the UK. That's something that happens over there in Hollywood. And yeah, it seems a bit weird that I get to do it now. My favorite scene in a film or TV show. Sometimes people ask you, look, it's a very hard question because there's so many and it's unfair to pick one. But if someone said, what's one of the greatest moments in a film? I think it's one is the moment where the ape throws the bone in the air in 2001, and then it cuts to the spaceship. Because what it's saying is so profound. It's like when you tell a story, you're supposed to just cut out all the boring bits. And so basically, the most interesting bit is the apes, we figured out a way to use tools, and then everything else was boring until we got to the moon. And it's we're part of the boring bit. Our whole lives are not important in the history of man. And it's kind of like, I think that's probably the case. And it's just like to see that in a movie, just like so brutally in one cut, is kind of really refreshing. You're always paranoid that, you know, you try and set up different projects or different films, and there's always this paranoia that you're not going to get to do the movie. And the golden rule is a film's never really happening until you hit record on the first day of filming. And I remember, like, so what you do as a trick as a filmmaker, because the second you press record, all these contracts get triggered and there's no going back. And so you just pick something stupid to film. Like, you just to trigger it, you just go like, let's just film the sky, you know, and you go action, and you cut it just to say, like, then they radio back to base and to the studio, like, we're rolling. And then everyone suddenly, all these things get triggered and the movie can't be stopped now. So this is not my favorite movie quote, but I loved Reservoir Dogs. I saw it 7 times at the cinema. And there's a line in that movie where Steve Buscemi is given the secret name of Mr. Pink. And he's like, I don't want to be Mr. Pink, I'll be Mr. Purple. And the guy goes, you can't be Mr. Purple, he's working on another job, you're Mr. Pink. I got to meet Tarantino when I was a film student. I heard he was at a film festival. And I went up to him with the poster and I was like, could you please sign this? And can you not write Gareth, could you write something else? And he ended up writing to Mr. Purple, AKA Gareth. And so I was officially Mr. Purple who was working on the other job. And so that's one of my proudest things at home.
That's the coolest story I've ever heard. That's amazing. Canonically, you're Mr. Purple.
Yeah, it's canon.